Mr. Big
You
Jason,
ready?
sir. Are you ready? Are you ready to shine bright? Let the masses hear the flame for you.
I'm ready, bro.
All right, Mr. Powder, sir. Mr. Jason Cummins. The floors are yours, sir. Go ahead and do what you do, and go ahead and shine bright, brother.
All right, hey man, thank you. I guess we're not doing any type of introduction, not needed for a seasoned veteran. No, I'm just playing. So, anyways, first of all, like I'd really like to say thank you for allowing me on this platform because it's crazy because there's a lot of people that are listening to these videos and these stories, our experiences, all different factions. So, it's kind of interesting because you don't really know who's actually listening to this. So at the end of the day, I try to bring the best content and historical events out here in California. So I think it's very, very, very necessary and appropriate to talk about like one of the craziest historical events in the state of California in the prison system, okay? Because in about 2003, the main focal point across the state of California for the Aryan Brotherhood, sympathizers, general population mainline was USAS, United Society of Aryan Skinheads. And the crazy thing about this is because the Aryan Brotherhood is considered white supremacists, USAS are considered white supremacists, but they're entirely different. The Aryan Brotherhood started within prison, expanded out there on the streets, clicked up with some multiple organizations and, expanded their enterprise and just became top dog bosses. On the other hand, USAS, they're National Socialists, consider themselves National Socialists, which has nothing to do with prison. And the reason why I'm going to share this experience and the whole backstory of how USAS actually got green-lighted by the AB, it's pretty interesting because I was a part of that whole entire deal, and all my closest bros were too. Everybody knows that I was from PDS, and my entire inner circle were all heavy hitters. We were all frontline soldiers, close bros.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And we were all coming up in this crazy game together. P&I Death Squad, we were more like white gang members. We weren't really considered, skinheads or anything like that, but we were so loyal and tied in with the Aryan Brotherhood, we were obligated to do whatever it took to get the job done. So back in 2003, the founder of USAS, his name is Chuck Davis. Originally, USAS was founded in Washington by somebody who has nothing to do with the California USAS. He is the actual founder. Chuck Davis is the co-founder, but the actual founder for the California chapter of USAS. And I remember when I was young and I was hearing about this dude, Chuck Davis from USAS. I mean, they were talking about him like he was just a god, like his reputation really exceeded a lot of people that were, big dogs to me. And then when I finally met the individual, I wasn't impressed. He was kind of like a sloppy dude, Coke bottle glasses, kind of walked around dumpy. But the reason why I'm talking about this, because there was a lot of people and a lot of things that were affected by this entire situation and these circumstances. And it all stemmed from Pelican Bay. When Chuck Davis was up there in Pelican Bay, he had an operation that was undercover going on where USAS were recruiting under the radar. And what their intentions were and what they were trying to do is they were trying to undermine the Aryan Brotherhood by recruiting all over the state of California on every yard. And they had what were called sleepers also. And these sleepers would act as if they had hatred towards USAS, but really, in fact, they were USAS bringing back information of the enemy. And what was happening here, because Chuck Davis was in Pelican Bay, and he had a cellie back then in Pelican Bay in the SHU, you could have cellies, Eventually, there was a bunch of murders that happened, and you're a single cell up in Pelican Bay in the SHU when I got there. But back then, you could have a cellie. And he was over on the short corridor with some bigwigs, and he got the orders to take out his cellie. And Chuck, he had a whole army that he was running himself. He wasn't impressed by the Aryan Brotherhood. He had USAS. He had an entire organization under his beck and call. So he told the Aryan Brotherhood, no. And let me tell you something. When you tell the Aryan Brotherhood no, when they put out instructions, especially on a hit, that's your ass, bro. Like, it's what it is. You receive that man's punishment. So when Chuck Davis denied these orders to take out his cellie, the tables turned. Now he was deemed not loyal to the Aryan Brotherhood. It was a test. Usually the Aryan Brotherhood will do that type of thing to see if you're with them or against them. And mind you, USAS, bro, like their bylaws and all these things that they have to study and develop and become before they even can think about being an actual member, like they are devoted to whatever Chuck says. And he knew this, and he took advantage of that. And he used to lead his comrades astray. So when all this was going on up in Pelican Bay, he was telling all of his comrades all down through the state of California that everything was good when it wasn't. Basically making all of his comrades sitting ducks with guys like me, guys like Knuckles, Trigger, an Animal, an Elephant, and all my inner circle, all my closest bros. We're just letting them have it. And what happened is they ended up moving on Chuck. So since he denied that, they had somebody move on Chuck. And Chuck, this was his one like little glory story where he in fact picked the dude up and slammed his head, dumped him on the sink. So the reputation of that spread like wildfire to where this dude was just some badass brother wasn't to be messed with. And that reputation and that word spread all throughout the state of California, and now USAS were starting to gain power. They were starting to gain power, bro, and they started taking over yards in the state of California. They were actually taking over yards, and anybody who was P9, anybody who was AB, sympathizer, they were going to get it. They were removing them based on Chuck's orders. And USAS, the way they're structured is very militant. So they have like a high council, sub-council, founders, and all that stuff. Well, they had 3 council members at that time, Bull, Georgia, and Chuck, all under the word of Chuck and the authority of Chuck. And so they were communicating and putting them all on the same page, but every word that was trickling down from Chuck was that he had everything worked out with the Aryan Brotherhood. And that is one of the sole reasons why USAS got a green light initiated. But it wasn't actually initiated yet. The Aryan Brotherhood gave them an opportunity to cover their patch, fall in line, and everything would be okay. But they refused that. They did not do it. They did not answer any recalls or any of that sort. So a permanent green light, and I mean permanent, this will never, ever be taken off. A permanent green light, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, sanctioned by the Aryan Brotherhood. Remove these dudes.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Try to murk these dudes. And here's what's crazy, and this is the reason why, I feel like it's necessary to put this out there, is I was there with Chuck, and there's a lot of USAS members who never even knew about this and how this unfolded. But when I was in Calipatria on Sea Yard, when Chuck arrived from Pelican Bay, he was there with like 7 other USASs on that yard with me and about 5 other P9 members. And that was the very first time that I actually seen them operate how they operate. And Chuck used to take all of his comrades' store and he'd place it in his cell and make them believe that he didn't want them spending their store irresponsibly, but in the cuts he's taking their store and coming over to us P9 members buying dope and then disciplining his comrades for doing dope. So basically he's disciplining his own comrades for a no-use drug policy while secretly he's spending their canteen money with us. We were like, Chuck, you are a dirty dog. Well, then that riot happened. That riot in Calipat happened, and when we were in the ASU pending transfer, that's when the permanent green light came on. And while we were pending transfer, we were all trying to sell up with a USAS member. It was about me and about 9 other P9 members back there in the hole with USAS, and they denied it. They did not want to see us, and they were looking towards Chuck to find out what the hell was going on and why we're trying to sell up. And Chuck would tell them, don't worry about it. Everything is fine. Now, you got to understand something. Out here in the state of California, it's a little bit different. This whole thing with USAS, they became a real threat, not only to the AB, but the P9, Nazi lowriders, anybody who wasn't a part of their agenda. Let me tell you something. They had some real militant individuals. These dudes were yoked up. Problem was, is Chuck led them astray. Reflecting back, they probably had an opportunity to maybe take over because they did sanction a few yards in the process. But then once that green light was on, bro, I mean, we let them have it. And the dirty thing about this was, and this is something that a lot of people do not know, is when we transferred from Calipat to Centinela, Chuck was on that bus with 4 other USAS members going to Centinela, where my homeboys were at. We were set up right there. But in the process of him going there, he checked in and escaped right off the bus, didn't tell his closest bros nothing. Checked in, and they went right out to the yard. It was like JD, one of my closest bros. He happened to be USAS, but he was one of the most likable, lovable, respectable dudes I've ever met in my life, and that was Chuck's right-hand man. He did not inform him of anything going on, and there's a permanent green light on these dudes, and there's some heavy hitters waiting for them. So when they went to Centinela, they had no idea. They had no clue what was going on. Next thing you know, my bros make their move. They make their move. They gun them down. They did 2 removals on the yard at the same time. They gunned all USAS down right there, 1 yard. It was like 6 on 2, and they handled it. The other 2 got snatched up in the process. Then they're wondering what the hell is going on. And this is such a historical event because, you know, I got validated for it. I should have been hit with an attempted murder. My homeboy Knuckles, you know, he was up.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
The interesting thing about this, too, is when this was all going down, me and Knuckles, he brought me into P9, but we were shining side by side together. And just random, he whacked Snow from USAS by himself, just like I whacked Riley DeVore by myself. When Knuckles did it up there, he did it on Sea Yard in High Desert when it was lethal force policy. Lethal force policy is when there is no warning shots fired, okay? They will literally shoot you in the face for a fist fight. They are not playing any games. Well, Knuckles decided to take Snow out by himself. And from what I understand is when Snow was trying to get away from him, he was running from Knuckles. And Knuckles was just holding onto his shirt, pulling him back into the knife each time.
Hang up on
plunging him. And this dude was running for his life. They didn't shoot. And he, you know, when I seen the incident report, Knuckles had so much blood splattered over his face from driving that knife in the snow so many times, you could barely even recognize him. All I could see was his little Odin's eye on flames by his eye and the peni across his neck. Mind you, these are direct hits. Out here in California, they were doing a big-time validation process where they were slamming us permanently inside a box, in the shoe, 24/7. There was no getting back out to the main line. These validations were being validated as an AB member or associate for these reasons, and they had to hit you with a certain amount of points to slam you. Well, a direct hit is enough points itself to slam you permanently. At that time, Knuckles got validated for that. Actually, they hit him as an Aryan Brotherhood member because of his connections and everything that was going on. I was connected with Knuckles. He was connected with these dudes. And it was just this big old communication that we had going on at that time. Well, right around the same time, me, little Pow Pow, was down there doing the same thing. And randomly, like I said, I went on a mission by myself. We don't need two, bro. We just need one, and we will handle it. I regret mine and how I did it. I've explained this before. I've actually apologized to Riley DeVore. I think it was some snake shit I did, and I completely regret it. I have total resentment for my actions, and if I could take it back, I would. But, you know, I've run that story down where I crept up on him, throat, stabbed him in the back of the neck, and I reflect back in the fear, because right before I hit this dude, he had looked back for a quick instant and then turned back around. So when he looked back, he didn't see me. And I couldn't believe it. I thought he did, but he didn't see me, and he looked back away, but he was looking for people coming after him. And as soon as he turned around, that's when I got him. But it was snake bad behavior, and the fear that I instilled into this man and his family is not acceptable. It's not the way we treat our people. It's not the way we treat human beings or anything like that. But just randomly, I ended up doing mine by myself, just like Knuckles did his by himself. He got validated. I got validated. Direct hits. And this whole time that this was going on, the founder, the God, the leader, the one who created it, wrote the bylaws, the propaganda, the whole structure of USAS, is checked in, and he's safe and sound. Safe and sound, bro, on the SNY side, while all this horrific stuff is going on the main line that he left behind. Now, I can't go into every single detail about this, but this went on from about 2003 to 2012. So this is an entire, 8-9 year process of everything going on around the state of California. And this was the main priority for us because they became internal enemies of our race. They declared war. We had to take them out. But this is the crazy thing. How I explained, how Chuck led them all astray, turned his back on his comrades, pretty much left them out to dry. I ran into him. When I dropped out, I ran into him in SADF, and I had an opportunity to speak with him before he paroled. And before he paroled, one of the first things he asked me when he seen me, he said, "Hey, Powder, am I a dead man?" I said, "Chuck, you don't got anything else to worry about other than your own kind for what you did to him." He knew exactly what I was talking about. Eventually, Chuck paroled, went to the streets after a 26-year sentence. He had no remorse for any of his comrades that got hit. He acted like nothing even bothered him. And when he went home, a few months later, somehow he passed away. They said an overdose. I don't know, something happened to him. But look at the karma behind that. His entire high council, Bowling, Georgia, died of overdoses. And that just shows you right there, the karma in this game, what it can get you involved in, and that type of stuff is not good. It's not acceptable. And somebody who's running an army organization, never turn your back on the people doing everything for you. Now, that is just a little story, backstory, details, insight, in-depth stuff about that whole little USAS trip. And the reason why I wanted to speak about it is because it affected my life big time. For what I did to Riley, being validated, all that was behind that. And at the end of the day, it was all for nothing. So I hope you guys appreciated this story. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back soon. Tony.
Damn! That was a heater right there, bro.
Yeah.
That was great, my boy.